get a little education real quick. I'm triracial essentially, right? So originally my ancestors are the Taino, who are the indigenous people to my island. The Spaniards came over and conquered and basically raped, molested, everything. You know, they interbred with us. They were using us as cheap labor, free labor, enslaving us. And then when there were so few of us left that they needed more free labor, they brought over the Africans as slaves and interbred with them again. So the Puerto Ricans that we have today, the Boricuas that we have today, are essentially triracial. We're a mixture of all three. So I do claim all my heritages, and I identify with all three. I was having a conversation one day with a close friend of mine who happens to be a black female, and she was using the N-word a lot, and then her using a lot, I wound up catching myself using, which is a word I don't use. And then I kind of just felt motivated to be like, you know what, this is something that a lot of us do that we shouldn't be doing. It dehumanizes our people, and we need to move past that, and we need to evolve and, you know, be better for ourselves as a community. If we want other people to treat us better, we have to start by treating ourselves better. So that's what this started this forum essentially. I'm like, listen, we all have to come together as a people, discuss this, and figure out how we're going to elevate ourselves and stop dehumanizing ourselves. So that's what this is going to be about, and it's going to be about uplifting ourselves and our community as well. So I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves now. We'll just go around. So everybody can just give their name, what affiliation they have on campus, if they have any affiliation on campus, and like your background.
Okay. Hello everyone, my name is Maria Santana. I am the president of the Dominican Student Association here on campus, and I am Dominican and Haitian. That's where my parents were born and raised. I am first generation Americana, or Domiyoki, which a lot of people are trying to like embrace here.
Cool.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Quentin Price. I'm the president of the Alpha Delta chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. I'm considered a black male or African American.
My name is Fatima Barry. I am the secretary of the Roosevelt Institute, which is a public advocacy club on campus, and I identify as African American, because my dad is African and my mother is African American.
Hi everybody, my name is Loisa Rivera. I am a student of Queensborough Community College. I'm the president of Oscar Mandela Committee and the Boricua Unity and Power Outreach. I identify as indigenous, Taino, Boricua, any of those I would identify with.
So first thing we want to talk about is dehumanization, because there's a lot of people who disagree. They say we should be able to use the N-word as people of color. They say that we've changed it into something that's a term of endearment, that's rightfully ours, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, people have to understand that this was and is a tool that has been used to dehumanize us. So basically, you know, I just went through a little bit of like what that is and what it looks like. And this is actually propaganda from an anti-abolitionist during the time of slavery. And you can see that like they want to do anything to make us not considered a man, not considered human, not considered a brother. So giving us outside terms is one of the things that they use to do that. So we want to talk about the different ways in which we use the word nigga today, right? So a term of endearment, an expression of frustration, a term for just any male, right? When we're angry or expressing aggression. So right, these are all the different ways, like yo, that's my nigga, or it might be like expression of frustration, like oh my god, my nigga, or any male, right, like yo, this nigga, or angry or expressing aggression, like yo, this bitch ass. Anyways, but yeah. So these are all the different ways we use this term. And the reason that I'm dividing that up is because it's become such a part of our vocabulary today that I don't feel like you could just take it out without replacing it with other terms. So we have to come up with new terms that we're going to utilize going forward. You can't just leave that void. So that's something this is yours, right?
Yes. Okay, so I grew up using the N-word, as a term of enjoyment for my friends and my family. But as I studied my history more, I realized that that wasn't a term that I wanted to be called, and it wasn't a term that I wanted to call people that I love. So I attempted to stop using the word, and I'm still trying to stop now. And I also told my friends who I speak to, please don't call me that. When they say, yo, my nigga, I say, I'm not a nigga. So they understand. Most of you can attest to this, most people that I spoke to in the room. As a man, I am a man, and socially, I am a black man. I say socially because the word black is an English term. We didn't give ourselves the word. It was an English term. And it was meant to symbolize things that was bad. Black male, black bald, the dark ages, black heart, etc. But going into the Black Power movement with Stokely Carmichael and Jesse Jackson, they made the term being black beautiful. they wanted to encourage the black people in this nation, basically. So they made that term good. And now we have the Black Lives Matter movement, which also is promoting the use of the word as well. So socially, I consider myself a black man. In conversation, I would consider myself a black man. But legally, during legislation and also internationally, I don't think that we can get where we want to go by calling ourselves black. Because black people are new people on this planet. We didn't call ourselves black before the African slave trade. That wasn't what we called ourselves. So when we call ourselves black, we call ourselves in the current state of affairs. So when we call ourselves black, we letting go everything that came before us. Terms that would basically say who we were before the African slave trade are something like I'm part of the Mali Empire, or I'm part of the Senkai Empire, or I'm an Egyptian, or I'm a Nubian. Those are ancient terms, or the Nak culture, the Nak dynasty. Those are ancient terms that basically relay that message. Like I said, black is the English word. English is a newer language, and black people are new people. But yeah, like even with Dr. King, when he fought for legislation, Dr. King fought for civil rights. Most of the legislation that he got passed was on civil rights. It wasn't on black rights. We benefited somewhat, but those wasn't black rights that got passed. Those were civil rights. So again, all the greatness that was in Africa, it doesn't legally apply to the black people that we are today, and it's not Asian people. If I had to say on the term that we would use, I would use the terms indigenous, the term native, and the terms aborigine. Even though those are English words, those terms give us our sovereignty because they mean that we belong to.
As a Boricua, the term Latin is a term that was given to us from oppressors. The term Hispanic is a term that was given to us from our oppressors. Caribeña or Caribeño for a guy is basically geographic. It's based on where you're actually from.
So Puerto Rico was pretty much invaded in 1492. We're taught that Columbus discovered us when he didn't. This was our land. We were here, as Quinton said, we were Aboriginal indigenous people. We welcomed them with open arms, and they completely betrayed us, and we closed our eyes, and they gave us a Bible, and we opened our eyes, they had the land, and it was a big, it was all genocide. It was all genocide, a genocide of a whole culture. They try to say we're extinct, but we're not. In 1898, so in 1492, Columbus invades us. Spain sponsors his voyage and invades us and colonizes us. In 1898, in the middle of the Spanish-American War, the United States invades us. Spain says pretty much, you know what, we don't want Puerto Rico anymore, we're not going to fight for them, y'all can just take them. The Puerto Rican people had no voice in this. We didn't become a part of the U.S. We didn't. If the law says we're not part of the U.S., we belong to, but we're not part of. So that's the definition of a slave. We don't belong to you, but I'm not part of you, but I belong to you. How can a person belong to something else? So we didn't choose that. 1917, we had our citizenship imposed right before World War I. They didn't blatantly say it, but many Puerto Ricans believe and will put their life on it that citizenship was imposed so that they can use us for cannon fodder. They can use us as soldiers and have us fight for freedoms that we're not even entitled to, that they don't give us. So a lot of things have gone on since then. You guys have probably heard about the Jones Act in the last couple of days, where basically because Puerto Rico doesn't have a federal court, it's not considered, none of the courts are considered federal courts, so ships cannot enter there from other countries. Ships have to enter the U.S. and then they can come into Puerto Rico. So that makes everything in Puerto Rico twice as expensive. Everything is just, I mean, it's common sense that this is like completely backwards. So in 1960, the UN forms the Decolonization Committee, the Committee for Decolonization, formed of 24 different countries that are basically meeting every year to discuss the decolonization of Puerto Rico and other colonies, not just in Puerto Rico, the Caribbean, Guam. There's places all around the world that are still colonized. Then in 1961, they formed the committee. Well, in 1960 they passed a law saying that colonialism is an illegal act. The United States basically is an international criminal. They're breaking international law because by the United States we all have the right to self-determination. Every country, every nation, every people has the right to self-determination. And by this resolution 1514, that they basically passed, the United States is a terrorist. It gives us and it gives any colonized or occupied people the right to fight for their freedom and fight for their sovereignty by any means necessary. And you guys can see today what that really means. A lot of people, a lot of Puerto Ricans in general, a lot of Boricuas, we are afraid of independence. We've been so dependent on the United States for the last 100 and plus years that it's 119 years now, it's going to be almost 120. We've been so dependent that we feel like, how are we ever going to make it without the U.S.? Even as soon as the hurricane hit, I was at the United Nations on the 19th, and me and my friends, we all got together, we were protesting. We had to have a moment of silence because we knew the hurricane was hitting at that exact moment. And the thing is that you see now, there's no reason to be afraid of independence. Because the reason most people are afraid is because they think we're not going to be able to make it. But if you look now, everybody's trying to help us except the United States. Everybody's offering help. Everybody's offering donations. And I hope that this Hurricane Maria is doing for Puerto Rico what Donald Trump has done for the U.S. Donald Trump has woken up a lot of people. And I'm hoping that Hurricane Maria really wakes up a lot of Boricuas and a lot of people and makes them realize, like, listen, ain't nobody helping us except us. Because all the movements, if y'all follow it, all the movements right now, all the struggles for relief, all the efforts are being done by the people for the people. It's our land.
But I wanted to say that the history of the Dominican Republic and Haiti is so important, right? But I really think that having a conversation about Dominican and Haiti conflicts is much more important for right now, and especially the time that we have. So I just wanted to open up the table and just open up, just popcorn style, just what do you guys think of what's been going on for the last few years? I know Ibrahim has a lot to say, but and you're totally welcome to speak, but anyone who doesn't know, who does know, has questions, concerns, answers, comments, I just wanted to hear what you guys have to say.
Wait, before you speak, can you just stand up, introduce
Yes,
yourself,
please.
and if you're a student here, just any affiliation, so it can help with networking on campus as well.
Absolutely.
Hello everybody, my name is Khalil Antonio Vasquez. I'm an alumni here at City College. As part of Students for Justice in Palestine, Black Student Union, Students Without Borders, which also exists to this day on campus. I'm Boricua. I also have descent from Haiti. My great-great-grandmother migrated from Haiti to Puerto Rico. What I want to say is we need to talk about what is political community. A political community is a community in which obviously establishes itself in a sovereign way. What is sovereignty? Sovereignty is not created just by words. I mean, ideas are very much part of what politics is, because you need to fight for ideas. But if your ideas are not fought for, then they don't matter, right? When we talk about the Caribbean is not allies of the United States. Our countries are divided. The Tainos inhabited all these islands, right? As one thing. Europeans came and divided it up because it was beneficial, because our lands are very fertile. We have a lot of cash crops which they wanted, right? We already know about there's different genetic proportions, but overall, we're overall triracial, although there's different proportions in different localities. The thing is, how are we going to solve Puerto Rican independence? How are we going to solve the embargo in Cuba? How are we going to solve the Haiti struggle? Yeah, divided, it's not going to happen. But together, it is going to happen. Because at the end of the day, the U.S. is an empire, and we're in the sphere of that empire. The United States, why are Caribeños, why are we even here in the Northeast? We're not just anywhere in the United States. We're not in fucking Wyoming, right? We're not in Idaho. We are in New York City, Boston, Philly, that corridor. We're in South Florida. Because South Florida is also the Caribbean also, right? If you ever been to Miami, anything below Orlando, that is Caribe too. The point is, when we talk about these things, at the end of the day, these words, signifiers, Latinx, whatever, they're just things people attach themselves to, whether we want to or not. At the end of the day, our people are not a color. White or black does not encompass the totality of what my people are. It does not. When we talk about, and it's also, we gotta talk about class. Anything that exists can be divided. All of our countries, you know who's not gonna solve the problems of our countries? The rich people. You know why? Because the governments that are in power now, that exist, are only in power because they need to suck the United States, because the United States put them in power in some way or another. When Juan Bosch, Dominicans know, and Professor Juan Bosch fought for a movement to create DR for Dominicans, the U.S. invaded. And they put in their man to Balaguer. And that regime exists till this day. The same thing with Puerto Rico. I mean, even though Puerto Rico is a direct colony, the Dominican Republic is a neo-colony. Haiti's also a neo-colony. So when Jean-Baptiste Aristide came to power to make Haiti for Haitians, the same thing happened. The Marines also came. The U.S. has invaded these countries before in 1916, in the middle of World War I. Cuba had a similar situation in which it was a neo-colony from the United States. And you know who changed that? Does anybody know? Comandante Fidel Castro. And that's why Cuba was isolated and embargoed. Which is why Puerto Rico, they don't want Puerto Rico to be independent. If Puerto Rico is the 5th largest market for the United States, right? There's 5 million Puerto Ricans, there's 3.4 million Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico. There's 5 million and change in the United States. If Puerto Rico became independent, that would weaken U.S. imperialism and even Inway and take off a lot of pressure from who? Cuba, Venezuela, and then what would next fall? Over to more progressive movements, Haiti, DR, right? And that's going to strengthen other movements where? In Mexico and all that. Then at the end of the day, we got to talk about identity's cool, but identity politics is just people talking about their feelings. We need political identities. You know what political identity is made through? Through the people who actually fought for it, which is why Castro, these people, the people who fought for the countries, they fought for it. Like it wasn't just like a discussion. And although we need to have discussions, because obviously we need democracy from ourselves to figure out the problems that we have to amend those problems. On the one hand, on the other hand, we also need to figure out who our enemy is. And our enemies, at a certain point, are not just going to be talked to. So when we talk about these things, we're going to talk about how to build unity while recognizing the divisions that don't need to be antagonistic and which divisions are antagonistic. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
We are short on time, and we want to get through every single presenter. But thank you so much, everyone who shared. We can definitely touch back on this conversation again, just Afro-Latinidad, what it means to be Afro and Latino. I'll definitely be here a little bit. I'll step up, but I definitely want to give the floor to Bella to introduce the next presenter.
So we have here Yanga. He is the national chairman of the Black Panthers. So please welcome him. Give him a round of applause. And we have here Justice, who is the national minister of law and justice for the Black Panthers. So please welcome her. Let's start with the fact that Africa is not a country, it's a continent. So we don't even know what countries we're from as peoples of, African American descent. Because that's an entire continent, and they've just kind of blanketed us, like, y'all just African. Like, you know what I'm saying? They don't do that to white people. They don't say, y'all just European. They all have their country, they all know their history, their heritage, where they come from. And there's a sense of pride in that. There's a sense of, a sense of self that you can derive from that we lack it. So starting by finding, what I talked about with my committee, a lot of people here, we discussed it, like, what can we do about that? So we thought maybe starting by providing means to find our ancestry and origins. So maybe like actually getting sponsors to provide like DNA testing for us so that we can actually pinpoint what countries in the continent we're from. And that would be a good jumping off point of us identifying ourselves and getting back a piece of our history that was taken from us. There's a lot of controversy on this. Fatima had touched on a point about it. Do you want to speak on it?
Oh yeah, so in regards to like DNA, ancestry, So in regards to DNA and ancestry, finding out like where exactly you're from, there is a lot that goes into it, and the results can be like conflicting because the way that they find out this information is through your genes, and it doesn't necessarily mean that your family came from that particular region. It just might mean that you have a gene that matches up with people that were in that region. So that's just what I was saying to Bella, that it doesn't necessarily mean that you're from that region. Like, I know for a fact, like, my dad is from Guinea because that's where he was born. But my mother is African American and she was born in America, but she has parents that were black or, descendants of Africans who were slaves here. So we don't know exactly what part of West Africa she was from. So even if I was to do a DNA test, it's not going to exactly tell me where my mother is from because, one, I have half of my gene pool, or technically it doesn't even necessarily have to be half of my gene pool, but I do have like African ancestry from my dad. So finding out from my mom where she's from, I may have to go through my mom, my brother, and other people in her family to really like narrow that down. So that was just the conflicting thing about going through that.
So two things that I want to touch on. Another thing that I don't know, but she had also mentioned to me that a lot of people who are not, who we wouldn't consider people of color, might do these DNA tests and find out they're like, 12% African, and now they want to claim that when they look white, they pass for white. They have basically Caucasian phenotype, and they have that white privilege. And I was like, well, I take issue with that. And so she agreed with me. We agreed that we take issue with them trying to claim that when you don't basically look that way externally. So the way that and a lot of people were like, well, you can't tell people who they are. So what I had said to her and to many other people was that if they want to claim that they are a person of color because they have a certain percentage, the only way that we could accept that is if they're actively fighting for the advancement of people of color. Because you cannot live in this world, benefit from the privilege, oppress other people who are struggling by default of just not doing anything against the system, and then you want to claim that heritage, but you're not doing anything you're basically a part of the problem. You're a part of the problem because you're perpetuating that same thing going on. You're like benefiting from the privilege, you're letting people struggle, and you're just, but I'm a person of color, I'm black. No, you're not. Because if you were one of us, you would be fighting for one of us. So that's something that we want to address as well. So if you do feel like, you have a percentage and now you want to claim this, well, all right, if you want to claim it, then be out here in the struggle with us, because a lot of us are suffering every day from what we go through as being people of color. You're not suffering from that. So if you want to be a part of us, then be a part of us. Be here in solidarity. Come out and unify with us. Come and be a part of the solution. Because if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. We will not accept you. So that is something that is very controversial, but we did speak about that as well. Again, as she said, there's like a lack of accuracy with these tests, so it's problematic. So we might not go that route as trying to find, our DNA. We might curtail that and try and look for other means to basically like have self-identity. One of the things I talked about with another individual, her name is Mariah Cameron. She couldn't be here today, unfortunately, but she's a Black Studies major. She is half Black and half Puerto Rican, and her and I were discussing it, and what we talked about was essentially maybe just looking at the history of the African continent in different countries, and at least trying to find the unifying threads and having a sense of pride and a sense of self and a sense of identity through the common factors that are going on throughout all the countries in the continent of Africa. So that's something we talked about as well. So this is going into the action plan now, and then we're going to open up to discussion. If you guys want to jump in at any time, we would really love if you jump in on that as well. So the first thing that we want to do, because again, we started off talking about the N-word, talking about Black and Latino identity, we want to start holding ourselves and our friends and peers accountable. So if someone is using language that is derogatory towards our people, your people, anybody's people, that's something that you need to address to your friend. Yo, listen, do me a favor, I appreciate if you don't use that language with me, right? Very simple. It doesn't have to be aggressive, doesn't have to be combative, doesn't have to be an argument. Just, hey, do me a favor, when you're around me, please don't use that language. If enough of us do that, it makes an impact. So we hold ourselves accountable, we hold our friends and our peers accountable as well. And it takes a lot of courage to do it sometimes because it could be uncomfortable, but it needs to be done. The second thing is we want to talk about holding celebrities and public figures accountable. So what we want to do actually is start sending out, maybe through social media, maybe we could do videos or through Twitter and things like that, actually like reaching out to certain celebrities in our communities and ask them, just address our concerns to them about them using this kind of language, and just let our voices be heard to them that we don't appreciate the kind of use of this language. We don't expect them to stop using the language tomorrow, but it's still a point to make your voices heard and let it be known that the masses, the people that you are supposed to be appealing to, don't approve of your message. Replacement terms. So I started touching on this a little bit earlier, which is basically like we use the N-word for a lot of different things, right? Sometimes it's a term of endearment, right? So-called. Sometimes it's out of anger, sometimes frustration. Sometimes people just use it for any male, like, oh, this nigga, right? That's been used that way, right? So it's become such an integral part of our vocabulary that I feel like you can't just pull it out and leave that void. We have to come up with replacement terms. So what are we going to be using instead? So that's something we're going to talk about. Again, organizational sponsorship to sponsor the DNA testing. I don't know if we're going to actually reach out and do that because there is a lot of question as to how accurate that is. I'm going to kind of put that as a question to you guys. If you guys feel like that's something that you would like to find out, then I'm down to try and get these sponsorships and get people to actually get their DNA testing done. But if it's not something that you're interested in, we'll move on. Yeah.
I guess for in terms of endearment, we can say my brother, terms of endearment, instead of saying my nigga, we can say my brother or my sister.
Right.
That could be a replacement. Because if it's your brother and sister, you want to show them love, you want to make sure that they're okay, they want to make sure that you're okay, and you have that bond with each other. So that's it for me.
For instance, let's say right now, I'm studying computer engineering, got a GPA of a 3.008 right now. I'm trying to get my, do my little things. Now, let's say tomorrow I find out some of my family's from Nigeria. So I'm Nigerian American now. That doesn't change anything in my life right now. Let's say you call me Black American, call me African American. That doesn't change anything in my life right now. So I'm trying to find out what, after we decide on identity, can we all unite and we say, okay, we plantain American now. What happens after that?
Brother, the reason we're not going anywhere is because we never approach our issues and our oppressions from a place of strength. The last time we approached our oppressors from a place of strength was from this man and this woman right here, the Black Panther Party. And because the federal government dismantled them, we are no longer in a position of strength. We had so much potential back then, and I believe we can get back there, but we have to agree on what we identify as.
2 minutes max, everybody.
Copy. So I want to say, I think I want to do personally a DNA test. I do because of the curiosity that I have. But that, like, I agree with you in terms that doesn't necessarily perform. Like, at the end of the day, genetics is not politics. Evolution happens genetically, biologically, but it also happens culturally. And we need to talk about the continuity and ruptures of the people. African Americans, people in this part of the world, in this hemisphere of African descent, came from Fulanis, Sokoto, Congo, Angola, thousands of people. And I'm not gonna say I'm not those people, but I did descend from those people. I descend from Tainos, but I'm not necessarily a Taino anymore. You talk about biology, it's called the theory of emergent properties. You can Google that. Emergent properties is basically in your cell, your DNA, you have information about what it is to be you.
That's right.
But that doesn't come, your whole organism is not just what your DNA it is. Obviously, you also your experience.
Yeah.
A community is not just what the DNA is. Because we talk about continuity and rupture. As you go, emergent properties means exactly what it means. As you go on different parts of the structure, different properties emerge. And we're not just the sum of our parts. We are not the sum of our parts. We, period. But I do think, in terms of knowing, I mean, it just shows, right? Exactly like we said before. There's white Americans here who, although they kept themselves more European, a lot of white Americans still have splashes of African blood and indigenous blood. For obvious, we already know why. But the point is, do they function socially as that? They don't. So then what a political, again, it comes down to what is a political community, right? I'm Puerto Rican, right? I'm darker than maybe the average Puerto Rican, but you're say Boricua. But I've been to the American South. There's black people, there's African Americans whiter than me. And we know this. Are they, right? It's like, no, we're not our genetics, our people are not a color, we need to define our communities as such. There's people from Latin America who come here and face discrimination, Mexicans and Puerto Ricans, who are whiter than Italians and Greeks. And then we're Latinos, and then they're white, politically. Because it's about politics, it's about power and strength and how we form that. Vamos.
Important. I've always heard this. You can't get to where you're going if you don't know where you're from. So even though being Nigerian American, if you find that out, it may not elevate you in any way in your schooling or academically or professionally, but once you know about yourself, you can empower others. So me learning about like my father's side, I was not raised by my dad at all. But I did my own research. I learned about Guineans, and my dad is Fulani. So that was actually my first language, was Fulani and French. I don't speak them at all. I lost it. I speak English only. But just being able to know where my dad is from and being able to research it, it empowers me, because no one can ever tell me that I'm a nigga, because that's not who I am. I'm a Guinean woman who lives in America, you know? So once you know about yourself, no one can ever tell you who you are, because you already know who you are. That's why I think it's important that you know who you
Hold
are.
on, Kente, because we all going off your question right now. So now you gotta let everyone speak on it. Louisa, and then Abdul, did you want to speak? Louisa, Abdul, and then me, and then we're gonna go back to something else.
Yeah, the most important part about identity is that's the biggest thing that colonialism, European colonialism, took from us. It was our identity. So when we reclaim our identity and we reclaim our sovereignty, most importantly, because in reclaiming our sovereignty, we take away those labels like, I'm sorry if anyone here identifies as African American, but African American is identifying as two continents, you know, and the sovereignty goes way beyond that. So when you reclaim that, you're able to see the connections between all the tribes, and you're able to create unity. because then you start seeing that these labels that we're given are colonial labels. They're colonial borders and divisions. And you're able to start saying, wait, hold on. We're not, you're not black and I'm Latina. I'm not Hispanic and you're African American. No, we're both brothers and sisters and we come from the same thing. And that goes for all the tribes and it creates unity.
Yeah, just a quick story. I was on 125th. I greeted someone, hey, my brother, and he told me, I'm not your brother. I'm from Brooklyn. I was like, come on.
Don't worry, you're my brother.
Yeah, it's really important for us to know. It creates bonds between us.
It happens, but you know what? You're on purpose. That's all right. So I'm going to close out on this question, and we're going to move on to something else.
Okay.
So I just want to say, you said, how does it help you, right, to identify something? Well, my thing would be that essentially, it's kind of similar to what Fatima said. Once you know what you are, no one else can identify you as something else, right? So they're trying to put all these negative images on us. The reason that that's important is because that's what allows people to get away with oppressing you. It's easy to oppress a people when they're not considered a people. It's easy to oppress a group when they're not considered human, when you're considered less than. So when you take off those negative labels and know I am human, this is what I am, this is where I'm from, I have a culture, I have a community, we are human beings. We haven't been stripped of our culture. You can't treat us as less than. I think that's the major point that I'm looking at for me. As if you're gonna ask me, how does this help me? I would say this helps you by not allowing them to oppress you because they can't put you at a subhuman state and excuse it that way because it's easy for people to it's cognitive dissonance, right? Like you can it's a psych term, right? I don't know if you guys are familiar with cognitive dissonance. Basically, like people have a hard time psychologically reconciling with the wrongs that they do. So they need to rationalize it in their mind. It's very easy for me to rationalize beating somebody down if I don't consider them human. But if I've given myself that human identity, now you can't beat me down and justify it in your minds. So I think that's the most important thing about us identifying ourselves as something.
I just want to say, actually,
I don't get no applause.
I don't want to wake them up.
I'm kidding.
I got a couple things I want to say. So one, when I look around us, I see that it seems like people don't have a problem oppressing other people. So even once we become a people or identity, that I don't see how that stops
I would challenge that
oppression.
they don't consider us
Say the
people.
truth.
But I would challenge that they don't consider us people. They
Yes,
consider
but
us
even if they
people.
did consider you a person, I don't see that stopping oppression.
It's a lot harder to oppress a unified people from a position of strength.
Let's go.
In Haiti, the Haitian motto, l'union fait la force, right? L'union fait la force. The unity creates strength, force, and that's why they did this Haiti.
So I want to say, as a black person, I look around at other races that seem to be a little more successful, I guess you could say. For instance, Arabian people. Or when you go, for instance, in my neighborhood, all the conveniences are owned by Arab people. When you think about Pakistani people, you think about Asian people, when you think about almost any other race that comes here and is successful. For instance, there are even some Dominican and Mexican people who are in America, they're doing fine. Back in their hometown, they own like a house that's 2 stories and they got a business and things like this here.
Right.
How do we take this speech of us trying to find identity and turn it into an action? For instance, most of the times that I get wrong or I have a problem is from another black person. Like most of the times that I may get kicked out of school for getting into a fight is from fighting another black person. So how do we take this? We should treat each other like when you see the Asian people, you can't separate them. When you see the Arab people, you can't separate them. How do we take this speech about our identity and turn it into something that I can actually do?
I want to ask, my name is Yang Kuma, National Chairman of People's Black Panther Party for Self-Determination. I wanted to wrap to the brother's question, and it goes into what you guys were talking about. First, we have to say, we have a number 5 on the 10-point platform program, People's Black Panther Party is, we want a history that teaches the true, we want history that teaches the true nature of this decadent society and the black woman and the black man's role in this nature, in this decadent society. We have to ask ourselves, what is a nigga? And what was the purpose of them creating a nigga? See, a nigga was created for a purpose. There was a reason that a nigga was created. So once we begin to ask ourselves these questions, we begin to start to look at what role we play in this society. One of the reasons I'm not the biggest fan of integration in the way that it was done. I agree with what Dr. Key was saying when he was saying integrate, meaning if I'm gonna go through your back door, you know what I'm saying, then if I'm gonna pay these prices, I want the same treatment as everyone else. But what ended up happening is we integrated, we began to assimilate our morals and our ethics. And I'm speaking specifically for what we call, some of us call African American black people. And when we begin to do that, the things that we held to be successful in our communities begin to erode, and we begin to hold their standards as the standards of success, meaning materialism. So we broke up the family. It was what you possess. You see what I'm saying? So when you look at other ethnicities and nationalities coming over here, by them holding true a little bit to the morals and ethics, despite the atrocities they went through, despite those atrocities, when you find these other ethnicities, one of the things that are true in their community is they understand the sense of obligation, responsibility, and duty to their people. They understand that. That goes without saying. If they got to live in the back of the store, if they got to help cousin, or whatever. But us being labeled the nigger, one thing a nigger never wants to be is the nigger, so he will find another nigger. He will begin to pick on the homosexual community. He will begin, or she will begin to pick on the academic community, anything that becomes a minority of the minority, so to speak. Or you in college, you're trying to be a white boy.
Say it.
You see what I'm saying? Anything to be the minority of the minority, because nobody wants to be the nigger. So I think things like this are very good and that's what identity brings. That identity gets you to, even if you don't know your specific identity, you know you're not a nigger. One of the things that I say that the African here in America must embrace, and that's what I call myself, an African here in America, is must embrace the American experience, as horrible as it was, because I am African, I'm Native American, I got some Caucasian rolling around there, and my great is Caucasian. So when we look at embracing the whole experience of the Atlantic slave trade, we begin to create a culture like we see from our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean. One of the things I have to applaud a lot of our Latino brothers and sisters is the atrocity of the conquistadors and all of this being conquered. They took that oppressive, and it was oppressive. They took the oppressive culture and they didn't allow it to cripple. They didn't whine. They didn't moan. We found the resistance movement that began to be born. And from that resistance movement, even though they were given garbage and other things, they had taken that and founded a unifying structure. Now we call them Spanish-speaking people.